Hello. Hello. How are you? Sorry, I'm 1 minute late. I'm going to turn on an Instagram Live just in case people don't like or use YouTube. I will mostly take questions from YouTube, but I will take the occasion one over here if there's a blank spot. But yeah, welcome. Long time no live. Long time no live. Let me know if you can hear me okay. Hello. Some technical difficulties as always this morning. I haven't used this setup in a while, but let me know if it looks and sounds okay on your end. See some comments coming in. Thank you, Dave. Appreciate that, bud. Much obliged. All right, put that there. Nice. Nice. All right. Oh. Give everyone a couple minutes to come on in. Yeah, if you're watching on Instagram, you can also feel free to shoot some questions in. I'll do my best to kind of keep an eye on both as best I can. Have I played much golf yet this season? I have played 2 rounds already, which with our climate is actually not as bad as it sounds. So I played once last week, once the week before. I'm going to try to play tomorrow, and I'm going to try to play Friday, just depending on the weather. All right. Is there a difference between TSR2 and TSR3 hybrid? Yeah, definitely. I'll show you. They're right behind me. TSR2 hybrid in my hand. TSR3 hybrid in my other hand. So the 3 has the adjustable weight track. The 3 is a little bit sort of, call it shorter back to front, so it's a little bit more compact shape. I don't know if the actual measured face depth would be any different, but the 3 should be a little bit lower launch and a little bit lower spin. The 2, I would say, generally speaking, is easier to elevate, a little more friendly, a little more forgiving, but depends. If this weight track is useful for you, which I have found it does a pretty good job of helping the face angle or strike a little bit, that may be the direction to go. But generally speaking, if you're looking at a Titleist hybrid, you're more likely, let's say, for the average person to fit into the 2, or the deuce, as it's also known. Okay, Alan's asking, does a shaft that works well with one manufacturer's head always work well with another manufacturer's head? I mean, in theory, it would be a decent place to start. Not a guarantee. If there's some variables there that I guess have changed with the 2 heads, if one's lower spin than another, if they perform differently on different strike points, if they weigh different things, you may find it's not the exact same, I guess, performance out of it. But theoretically, it would at least be a good place to start. If you've invested in an aftermarket shaft and you put into a different head, I mean, you have a pretty good chance of it working, but you may want to do a little bit of testing, if that makes sense. Lots of questions coming in. Okay, I'm going to do my best to move efficiently so I can get as many of these in as I can. Good question here. Have I noticed much difference in launch angle and spin when I hit the GC quad outside? Yeah, I would say I tend to launch the ball lower and spin the ball more. So I hit up on it less with the driver outside, and I hit down on my irons more outside. Why, you may ask? It's actually pretty common. I think my theory would be outside, off turf, hitting an iron. We're a little more worried about hitting it fat, so maybe we tend to move the low point forward just to make sure we don't chunk it and make an ass of ourselves. And then with the driver, it's a good question. I mean, the driver may be just like a little bit more anxious outside, where we're trying to just keep the ball in line, maybe just trying to control it a little bit more, and that may predispose me in particular and others to not hitting up on as much, but that's what I noticed. Bit lower launch, bit higher spin. Wouldn't be the same for everybody, but I certainly find that. That is good to hear, bud. Good to hear. My perceived differences between the new Ventus Blue and the old Ventus Blue, I haven't hit them side by side yet, so I would need to do that to tell you. I liked the new one, but I've only hit it a handful of times, so I would need to really go back and forth between the two of them, to be honest with you. The old one's going to get phased out anyway, so if you're looking at a new shaft from them in that profile, you would be going with the new one regardless. If you own the old one, is it worth the $400 or $500 to upgrade to the new one? I would say it's not going to be a huge difference, nor is it, I don't think it's intended to be fair. Or my scores for the first 2 rounds, junk, garbage. I had a few good holes here and there, but did I make a birdie? Maybe make a couple birdies. I had a few very good shots, but I didn't shoot a good score. I made a ton of bogeys. And a couple of question marks mixed in there. But it is what it is. The beginning of the year, the first couple rounds, are likely to always be scrapey and or crappy. Do I have a line on my ball when I putt? Yeah, I usually just use the alignment line that the ball comes with, like a Pro V1 alignment line. But I have messed around with drawing a little bit longer one on there, which I don't mind. But my putting in general is needing help. I would draw just about anything on the ball if it would help. Wait, sorry, tipping you over. Okay. Does my grip pressure change during the swing? I'm sure it does. Would it be ideal to keep it consistent? Sort of, kind of. You're never going to actually keep it consistent. It's impossible. The amount you would be squeezing through impact and in the downswing, you're not going to physically do that at address, nor would you necessarily need to. So yeah, there would be a pretty defined increase in grip pressure and squeeze as you start bringing the club down and then through impact. So it would be pretty impossible to keep it the same unless you were putting, I would say. Putting might give you that opportunity. Any sort of longer motion with some force, your hands are going to work. Your brain's going to do that work for you, hopefully, for the most part, to hold on to it because you're swinging it quite a bit faster. Christopher's asking what happened to the Project X wedge shaft. Nothing that I know of. I guess it's maybe just not super widely available. I don't have it here. I mean, I think it makes sense. It's just, there's a lot of wedge-specific shafts out there. I myself just have my iron shafts installed and the wedges soft-stepped. That's what I do for myself. I do that for a lot of other people because it seems to make sense. So wedge-specific shafts are interesting, but I don't know if it's really worth people going down that rabbit hole. They're usually just a little bit heavier or a little bit softer, or both. Okay, Jack's asking if I drop my arms into the slot or actively pull them down. I would say I try not to do either, if I'm honest. I would try not to do either. If you're making a good turn and you're working on the right drills, hopefully you would start to learn how to have the arms flow in that direction. But yeah, when you're trying to break a habit of being over the top, you may need to feel almost kind of like a little bit of a looping motion in your backswing. I would think of that more than I would think of this. Pulling down is probably just not a good feel, I would say. And I know for a fact somebody's going to comment, but Sergio said whatever he said about that. I would not listen to that advice. Sergio is a very good player who does move the arms well in the downswing, but he's not actively going like this. I can tell you it's just a thought that would, when you often get a really good player to explain what they're doing, they don't necessarily know what they're doing. And pulling down your arms is a good way to get yourself really out of sequence. So I would just be careful with that as much as you can. Okay, quick Instagram question here. Have I tried the new Project X Denali line? Yes, I have. I have tried the black version. I thought it was pretty good. That was pretty good. I thought it felt better than, I guess, the Gen 4 black would, which I'm assuming is mostly the point of it. Ball flight was pretty similar. Felt pretty stable, but yeah, felt like it had a little bit more feel to it. A little bit more feel. Okay, Mike's asking what kind of shape my home club is in right now. Pretty good overall. Yep, greens are definitely on the slower side just start of the year. They've been punched, they've been sanded, which is good. So the weather has been pretty spotty. I mean, it's not exactly been consistently warm or sunny or things like that. So I'm sure it will come along quite quickly once it gets a little bit nicer out there. That's a good question. Yeah, good question. So my last video, I did say that I was a little flippy with my release, which I am, but delivering less dynamic loft, so meaning I'm not adding dynamic loft. I guess it would be flippy on the horizontal plane more so than on the vertical plane. So, and to take that further, what I mean specifically is really just that my body kind of stalls through the impact area, and the hands and arms kind of have their own deal for a little while, and then the body kind of catches up to it. So to me, that's what flippy means in my case. It just feels like that part of the swing gets a little bit dominated by the hands and arms, and not as much in sync with the body, if that makes sense. Would I take anyone else but Scheffler to win the PGA Championship this month? I would say he's again the safest bet. Sounds like they've got some fairly long roughs, so I think the ball striking stat will be important as always. And he is currently the best at that. So yeah, we'll see. He will probably contend. I would be shocked if he didn't. Sounds like Brooks would be a contender if you want a little live pick sprinkled in there. I would say he probably will play well as well. Although I don't think he played well in the Masters, but maybe that was just an isolated incident. He might be back in form. PGA is kind of his thing. Brent, that's a fair question. So thoughts on Mizuno not offering the new 243s in left-handed. Love my 223s. Fortunately, we seem to get skipped in several releases. Yeah, I mean, in fairness, yes, it'd be nice if they just released everything left and right-handed every year. From a business perspective, it obviously doesn't make money, so I can't fault them for not wanting to, basically lose money on a product. Hard to convince a company to want to do that. Just not doing enough volume of it. But with that being said, I really don't think someone who plays 223s would be making a worthwhile investment upgrading to 243s. It's just too similar. I think it's just way too similar. I mean, they made some minor improvements, 245 from 225. Again, sure. Would the person playing call it the 2 series, or what do you want to call these now, from 2 years ago, would it make sense for them in the MP line to upgrade this generation? I would say probably not. Probably not. You could probably skip a generation, and as a lefty, as you said, you don't really have a choice, do you? All right. Paul, good question. Would getting adjustments or fitting for older equipment, such as weight shafts, be worth it for someone on a budget? Yeah, a couple-year-old drivers. So generally speaking, yes. You just have to be careful in terms of reshafting is not cheap. People need to be aware of that. That gets very expensive, especially in the irons. So that definitely gets expensive. Often when someone looks at what it costs to reshaft the set of, let's say, 4 or 5 or 6-year-old irons, it gets dangerously close to what a new set would cost, with an included shaft, let's call it. So that's something to be aware of, but yes, I would say it would be worthwhile to at least have your equipment assessed, and honestly, you may not need quite the wholesale change that you're describing. You may not have to reshaft every single thing. There may just be 1 or 2 things that probably could use that, or like you've said, some weight adjustments. It'd be worth a look. For sure, be worth a look. All right. Quick Instagram question. Have I ever been fitted in the past and had a good fitting, and then when I got to the course or with the clubs, I started shanking? That's what I'm going through. Any tips? I can't say I've personally gone through that. Not that I haven't presented other types of mishit. It's kind of an obvious thing to say, but obviously the clubs are not the reason that you're shanking it. You probably know that already. So, what should you do for shanking? Chances are you are one of the next few things I'm going to say. Standing way too close to it, taking the club extremely upright in the backswing, and or bringing it down extremely steep in the downswing. Your hands are for sure moving towards the ball, at least to some degree, which kind of comes hand in hand with that steepening motion. So further away, work on drills that will round out the plane of your swing quite a bit. And in the short term, you should quite literally try to hit every single ball on the absolute end of the toe as a drill. I do that with people in here sometimes when they have a bit of that shanking experience going on, just to kind of hit reset and calm down the hand motion a little bit. You'd be amazed. I put the strike location on the screen and say hit the toe. The first 10 minutes is just heel strike, heel strike, heel strike, maybe a tiny bit less heel strike, but it takes a while before someone actually gets a sense of moving the strike away from that part. So hopefully one of those things or multiple of those things will help you. But try to avoid blaming the clubs for that, because if you were fit for them and if you were able to hit them fine in one situation, there's obviously a variable that is not the clubs that is involved. All right. There's my boy Al. Hello, Al. Oh, and you're also on here. Big Al sent me a message the other day expressing some interest in coming to Toronto this summer. So if you're listening to this, and I think Al is still listening to this, encourage him to do so. Encourage him to do so. He should come, absolutely. Film some videos, maybe play in a certain charity event that I'm hosting on July 11th. And if you're watching, perhaps you would also like to play in said charity event. We do have space. Yeah, the big guy. All right. That's a good question. Tim saying, woods versus hybrids, which is more forgiving and what loft would you recommend? Trying to fill the gap between a driver and a 5-iron. Okay, so there's no way to answer that without seeing you hit balls, obviously. What's more forgiving? Technically, you probably get a little better strike forgiveness out of a fairway wood based on the center of gravity location, but also you're dealing with a longer shaft, so you may just have more trouble striking it. The fairway wood's going to launch the ball higher and spin the ball more, all things being equal, depending on the design. So you should be picking between the two based on the flight that you need, the spin profile that you need. So if you're hitting the ball on the really low side already, let's say your 5-iron is a little bit knuckly to begin with, chances are hybrid does not make sense. And in that case, you might want to look at a higher lofted wood. Again, the loft is going to depend entirely on the trajectory. So you got to pick a number. I don't know how far you hit your driver, but let's say you're looking to hit this club 215 in the air. You got to try a few different hybrids, a few different woods at different lofts and see what gives you, let's say, a decent peak height, balanced spin, and the carry number that you're looking for. That's an interesting question. So, struggling with tempo and contact, how are they related? The more lessons I take, the worse it gets. That's funny. Not funny, not ha-ha funny, in your case. I generally find, if anything, people swing way too slow. Way too slow. They take the club back way too slow. The only thing people tend to do too quickly is transition. And it's sharpness, not necessarily transition speed. It's just like slow, fast. That's an extremely common pattern. I don't know how anyone can hit the ball consistently that way without a ton of talent, obviously. So I would encourage you to look into taking the club back with a little bit more pace. Try to create a little bit of separation in transition. So almost feel like your hands and club are still moving into the backswing as you are already moving towards the target with the lower body. Again, I haven't seen you hit a ball, so I don't really know, but that would be something I see constantly is people taking over a second in the backswing. And then from what I can tell, most people do better. They produce more speed and they strike the ball better and more on line if they can keep that backswing duration to, let's say, more like 3/4 of a second. And those are very generic numbers, but at least gives you an idea. Are Miura blades that great, or are blades just blades? Mirrors are an extremely high-end, extremely well-made, sexy item. It doesn't mean you're going to hit the ball better than what you're describing in a Mizuno and a Strixon. If they had a clear performance advantage, then they would be all over the tour, because guys would break contracts, but they would play equipment that made them play much better if they really saw a huge advantage. I don't think that you should be looking at them as like, I'm going to hit the ball straighter or more solid or whatever with that club. They're just incredibly well made, extremely nice forged item. It's kind of like saying, you know, is a Maserati going to get me to work faster than a Honda? It's like, one you can afford, and one will still get you to work. But yeah, it's a different experience. A mirror is obviously a different experience. There's a reason they cost what they cost, and they're sick. But yeah, I wouldn't think of it, it's not really a performance thing. I know probably some people would disagree with me, but let's be fair, unless you're in the top 200 in the world in ball striking, I don't really think that you're picking up 10 different blades and analyzing your windows and divot pattern or something. Not to be negative, but that's just the reality. So if you think they're cool and you like the feel of them and the look of them and you want to spend some money, then go for it. They're cool. They will be in here actually at some point very soon. Mirror will be carried at this facility, all the different iron models, probably some wedges at some point as well, so stay tuned for that. It is official, but I just don't have them in the building yet, that's all. Blake, good question. Good drill for someone that de-lofts the club too much. De-lofts the club too much. Check your grip first to make sure it's not too strong. Check your backswing to make sure you're not taking it back incredibly shut. Check your downswing plane. A lot of people I see are very steep shaft, very shut face. That will deliver zero loft. So you need to get the club coming down in a shallower plane. So basically your dynamic lie needs to get closer to zero. And check your release pattern. A lot of people just absolutely just flip and hood the shit out of it through impact. So one of those things is likely what you're doing. All right, okay, all right. What is the fastest green speeds I've ever played? It's a good question. That's a very good question. Probably, oh man, I mean, there's a course called the National in Southern Ontario here in Toronto area that has extremely tough greens, I guess. I'm having a hard time thinking of a place where the greens were just like pool table fast though. To be honest with you, I really haven't played much golf like that. It's not super common in this part of the world in general, just climate-wise. It's only really so fast they can get greens. And there's a few courses in my area that are notorious for crazy fast greens, but to be honest with you, I haven't played at them. I just know of them, I just haven't actually played there. 3 hybrid, do you swing it more like your long iron or your fairway wood? I guess fairway wood, if I had to pick one. You should be hitting slightly down on both of those things anyway. Lowest spinning Z-Star ball is the Z-Star XV. So if you want to compare it to a Pro V1, you would compare it to the XV ball. In my speed video with the 7-iron, was the mentioned dynamic loft in that video was around 23, I think, in that range. Lower than usual, so, which is interesting. That drill actually helped me deliver less loft. That part of it I can't unpack yet for you. I'm not sure exactly why that is. I have an idea of why, related to the flipping aspect that we discussed a few minutes ago, but I'd have to get into that a little bit deeper. Do I generally decide on set makeup based on speed? So for a certain speed, you stop at 5, faster, you stop at 4. Not necessarily. Speed's a factor for sure. It would have a lot more to do with the height that's produced, either through loft, and speed's a huge factor in that, but delivered loft's a big one. Someone's ability to strike that length of iron is a big factor as well. A lot of people are not producing a serviceable strike beyond a 7-iron, to be honest with you. So that's a big factor as well. So the ability of the person to strike the ball and the ability of the person to produce height would be equal to, if not more important than speed. But speed is a factor. It's a good question. People ask me this all the time. Big pro level players, which I am not, tend to play a cut. I seem to always play a draw. Yeah, I'll try to keep this brief. The chances of an average person who didn't grow up playing golf from a very young age at a very high technical skill level being able to hit a cut the way that you see John Rahm or DJ or very high-end Morikawa players hit a cut, it's not the same thing. So, you know, an amateur player stalling their body, cutting across it and sort of hanging onto the face and hitting a fade is not even close to what those guys are doing. Those guys are way open at impact. They have tremendous rotation. Sequencing is incredible. They're producing a fade in a very different way. So for a player, that, as I've described, a normal person, somebody without high levels of talent or just like a long history of good sequencing and body mechanics and all that kind of stuff, being able to produce a fade as a result of good technique and swing development is low, not likely to happen, to be very honest with you. The type of things that someone needs to get more consistent, let's just say on an amateur level, usually it would involve more of a draw pattern. And that's probably something I'd have to talk about for longer, but that's, hopefully you get the gist of it from that. All right, Al, we're gonna make this happen. We're gonna make this happen, no more teasing. So Al, you are gonna send me a message when you are done watching this, and we're gonna look at some flights and some logistics, and let's make it happen. Big Al in Toronto. Big Al group for the Preserve Open, there would be a lot of interest, and it is a great cost. So yes, there would absolutely be such a group. Al, fun guy to be around, obviously, excellent player, probably likes to drink a few beers in the course. Sounds great. Again, let's make it happen. Captain, I will make it happen. Sergeant. Do I actively use Larry's downhinge field to start my downswing? At this very moment, no, but it would be something I go back to, which you actually just talked about with him the other day, when I know I'm getting very like wristy in transition. I would say for me, I'm more so at the moment, if I was working on that, would just be trying not to crank in the downswing. I don't know that I would be actively pushing, but if I get super cranky, let's say, in transition, yes, it would be a very good thought and something that is actually very helpful for a lot of players. How's the new putting studio? It's great. Thank you for asking. I have stuff all over it right now because I was just setting up for the film day, but I just did a putter fitting about an hour ago. Putting studio has been sweet. The camera system is awesome. Same as I have in the bay, so face on, top down, and down the line, swing catalyst, and then obviously the roll numbers and the stroke numbers from the quad are sweet, super sweet. It's taught me a lot about my own putting. Hitting down on a putter is challenging. I see that a lot, myself included, so it's been sweet. Brendan's asking about basically a combo one length set, so you have 3 different lengths: long irons, mid irons, and short irons and wedges. Yeah, I don't think it's a bad idea in general. I think, you know, I was actually, Drew Cooper was talking about it the other day when I was talking to him. I have a feeling that sort of one length from 9 iron to 5 iron and then wedges in variable length might be the type of thing that I would be interested in testing. I don't think I want pitching wedge and lower at 7 iron length. But I can definitely see, just from the tests I did, having like a mutant 7 iron basically, which would become a 5 iron at that length, and 6 iron would be not a big deal. And then just it would be a slightly longer 8 iron and 9 iron. I don't think it would be that big of a deal either. So yeah, it interests me more than it did a year ago, I'll say that. My curiosity has been piqued. And I think when Drew's here in the summer, I mean, Drew's obviously somebody with some of the fastest club head speed in the world, and also would be extremely high level of just like quality of sequencing and stuff. So obviously us speccing out what our equipment should be based on Drew's is not exactly the smartest thing in the world, but it is interesting just because, you know, you can sort of see how those clubs could be spec'd just like as a test basically. So something to keep an eye out for. Speaking of Drew, yeah, asking about his 14 degree driving iron club. It sounds like he likes it a lot. I don't think it's just for fun. He says he carries it like 260 or something, which wouldn't shock me in the least. I'm sure he's probably being modest. I'm sure he can hit further than that. Or maybe I'm just misremembering. Maybe he said 280. But yeah, he's basically, he has to control peak height because he has so much ball speed. So center of gravity location being far forward in an iron would be one way to help that. And then low loft would be another way to help that. So no, I think it's a club he actually uses. I think at the moment he's got 2 drivers, and then I think that's the next thing in the bag, as far as I know. Okay, sorry, just trying to catch up a little bit. Have I been to Michigan? I have not. I would love to come play some golf in Michigan. It's on my list at some point. That is for sure. Okay, let me just take this one here. I recently had a bad fitting experience. Got me thinking, could a badly fit shaft for irons actually ruin you, or is it more in line of it just being... You would have to be so horrendously fit for it to actually ruin your swing. It would have to be shockingly bad. Would it be less optimal as you described, or would there have been a better option for you? It's certainly possible if the fitting wasn't great. But again, what does not great fitting mean? It does vary from person to person, but it sounds like you don't have confidence in what you're fit for. I'm not sure if you bought them or not, but yeah, it's a challenge. But I would say, the reality is, different iron shafts specifically is what you're describing. There's variables involved. You will definitely have a better experience with one versus another. You'll have better ability to strike the right part of the face. You'll have a better ability to control your face angle and loft, stuff like that. But for it to make you go out on the course and play the worst golf of your life, I don't see that. Mentally, sure, like it can affect someone to the point where their confidence is gone, but if you test different irons in an environment where you actually really closely look at the numbers, not as much is changing as people would think between shafts. That's all I'm going to say. Things are changing, but it's not like one shaft launches the ball at 19 degrees and one shaft launches the ball at 14 degrees. If they're being standardized closely, they're a little tighter than people would think. Okay. Are non-driving iron style 3 irons dead? Yeah, 100%. Yep. I can't think of someone who hits a muscle back 3 iron in a way that would be they would be better off with that than something that has some forgiveness or extra pop to it. Cannot literally think of anyone. It would just be someone who's very traditional. I don't know if Scheffler, for example, is playing a real 3 iron right now. He probably is, but again, we are talking about literally the best ball striker currently playing the game. Obviously Tiger in his day would have played 2 iron and 3 iron. Again, we are not talking about a normal person there. So yeah, dead is obviously a relative term, but effectively it has died. A lot of companies don't even sell them. So that gives you somewhat of an idea. There is argument to be made the traditional 4 iron is dying. And the traditional 5 iron has 1 foot in the grave for most people, to be perfectly honest. Good drill to increase backswing tempo, literally trying to make the club whistle a little bit on the way back, so like move some air. Film yourself on your phone so you can see how fast you're actually moving. Most people have no real perception of how they're actually taking the club away. They think they're taking it away fast. If you watched yourself back, you'd often find that it looks very normal. So some feedback, some camera recording, and some just intention to move it. Move that thing. Readable feedback, quantifiable, would be the DeWiz watch that I use here. Not everyone wants to spend $800 on that, which is fine. It is awesome. It does more than that, obviously, but that would be the one way that I know of to get quantifiable feedback. And if I'm not mistaken, Hack Motion also gives you tempo ratio, and I may give you backswing duration. I could be wrong. But yeah, there's some wrist sensors that will do it. Good question. Advice for a player whose ball striking is trending. That's good to hear. Trending in the right direction. Currently play P79s, but I want to try something spinnier without losing the protection on missids. Yeah, it's a good question. The first thing I would do is weaken the lofts on them, because that doesn't cost very much to do, and you could give that a test, play some golf. That would increase the spin 100%. You'd keep the same forgiveness. That's the cheap option, and might actually work out quite well. If you want, let's just say, a non-hollow construction iron for, let's just say, a little bit more even if it's just perceived consistency, and something with more loft, I should say. I think something like, I'll mention a few irons actually. I won't be too picky. Some of these aren't that forgiving, is the only thing I'm going to say. An Apex Pro from Callaway is a fairly techie iron at a pretty traditional loft. You still get some good forgiveness out of that. You know, a Mizuno 243, again, I wouldn't call it forgiving per se, but it's certainly more forgiving than some irons at that kind of loft profile, which is, again, more loft than what you got in the P790. I think kind of a sneakier one would be like a Ping i230. It is traditional loft for sure, and it is a player's iron, but it's a little bit beefier than some in that category, and I've found it to be pretty forgiving when I tested it myself, but also just like dealing with people in the shop. So those are a few. I'm trying to think if I'm forgetting anybody. Yeah, probably about it, to be honest. Srixon ZX7 is the right loft, but I wouldn't, again, it's not their fault. It's a forged cavity iron. Those aren't forgiving. No more is a T150, not particularly forgiving compared to what you're playing. So yeah, try the ones I mentioned, but honestly, bend yours weak first and do a little bit of testing. See if the loft profile makes enough of a difference. You may actually get the flight that you want out of it. Again, if you're looking for new irons, then that's a whole other story. Christopher, good question. I would consider it, bud. Yes, only though if I was producing videos on a much more frequent and consistent basis with some support on the production side, which I'm kind of working on, so that I can offer something more robust. The reason I really stopped doing it is I just felt like I wasn't contributing enough for it to be of value to people. So I wouldn't say no for sure, but under the current circumstances, I just don't think it would be enough value for people, to be honest. But I will keep it in mind. Okay, I will take an Instagram question because I've been ignoring it over here. Okay, working on dynamic loft. My pro said 23-degree dynamic loft with a 7-iron is too much. Yeah, no, that's not too much. Not too much. It would be too much if you were Drew Cooper, probably, because he probably needs to deliver a bit less than that to control his ball flight. But 23 degrees of dynamic loft is not too much on a 7-iron. A traditionally lofted 7-iron is 34 degrees, so you're talking about 11 degrees of shaft lean. If your strike location's in a decent spot with 23 degrees, you'll launch it 17 and a half, 18 degrees, depending on the iron model. So yeah, honestly, I think the real answer is I don't think 23 degrees is too much. You'd have to have an incredible amount of speed, or you'd have to be hitting up on it or something weird. I don't know. It's not too much. 28, 29, 30 is too much, but 23 is fine. Who is the guy I've been talking to in my recent videos? So that is a good friend of mine. His name is Egan. He is, actually oddly enough, when we were younger, he was in film school. He's the one that originally kind of got me into making videos in general. Nothing to do with golf, but that's kind of how I got into enjoying like the production side of it. We used to do stuff together on the side and sort of for his school and stuff. So yeah, so longtime friend of mine. He's a golf enthusiast as well, probably not as much as I am, but and he is someone that he's got talent and ability for this kind of thing. Like he knows production, but more importantly, just like he just knows how to sort of weave a web in terms of a story, kind of do that kind of stuff. So it's a good fit. It's fun for us to hang out, although sometimes we don't get that much work done. So he's been coming in, helping me with filming, keeping things loose, asking questions that we think people might want to hear that I may need to be prompted on. So you'll see more of him in the future. What is the number one thing that limits swing speed? Crappy technique. Number one, in my opinion. Obviously, somebody's physical attributes notwithstanding, age. physical strength. But beyond that obvious stuff, yeah, just all kinds of swing dynamics issues. That's the number one limiter. People, swinging steep, bad setup positions, super short backswings, long backswings that have bad sequencing, that kind of stuff. Have tested the new Graphite Design VF? Yep, I have. Yep, I absolutely have. Why is someone saying I lost audio? No, I think it seems to be fine. Yeah, it's good. I like it. How does it compare to the Ventus lineup? I think probably, the launch profile would be more Ventus black-ish, but I don't think it feels all that stiff. I think it feels pretty nice, which, Graphite Design is obviously renowned for that. It feels nice, but it's stable. I would say it achieves that. It absolutely achieves that. Oh, that's right. Yep, someone chiming in that Scheffler is using a utility iron from Srixon, so there you go. Even the best in the world. Do I give customer a couple of choices of clubs to pick after the fitting and let them go with their gut feeling, or push them to one option that fits best? I wouldn't say I would wait till after the fitting to have that type of conversation. I'm usually pretty honest with people. There's often one or two, let's say we're talking about, what are we talking about? Okay, let's say we're talking about irons. There's usually a couple of heads that are late in the running, let's call it, that the person couldn't make a bad decision between. I will, unless something is so obviously better for someone that they would make a really bad choice by going the other direction, I will usually say something to somebody like, it's okay for you to have a little bit of personal preference. You can tell me if something looks better to you, or you like something better, or you prefer this brand, whatever. It's okay to inject some of that, but no, I wouldn't wait till the very end. Generally have that conversation kind of throughout just to see. There are people that are hitting two clubs functionally identical. I see it all the time. So it's okay to have a little bit of personal preference. I would not usually wait until the very end to say that, although a lot of people just want to be told what you recommend them. They don't want too much kind of ambiguous stuff in there because it just gets confusing and then you have doubt that creeps in afterwards. Yeah, hopefully I've answered that adequately. I always say to people, ultimately it is your money. I think I said this to someone yesterday. It's like if you go get fit for a suit and a tailor and he puts the right colors on you and all this, he's a stylist and he picks it all for you and he's like, this is the absolute best thing for you. You look great. Women will be falling over you in the streets. You must buy this. And then you turn around, look in the mirror and you look like an ass. It's still your money. So, is that a one-to-one comparison with golf? No, but we're not playing golf for a living. You're not going to be on the PGA Tour. So a bit of personal preference and enjoyment is totally fine to mix in there. Take the person's advice and weigh the pros and cons. Can't imagine too many situations where a person can't at least give me a little bit of feedback about what they like. And if it's very clear that one is a way better choice over another, yeah, I will tell them. But ultimately, it is up to them to decide. What's an iron brand or model that is underrated or more mid-handicap golfers to check out? Underrated. Let me give a couple of non-traditional answers. I would say of stuff that just came out, I don't get that many people asking me about Ping's new i530 iron. I think it's extremely good, so that's one. Some people may be saying, how could that be underrated? It's from Ping, but take that for what it's worth. I think a Mizuno iron, either JPX or MP, is kind of sneaky underrated because Mizuno has some of, if not one of the best included shaft matrices available. So things you can get for no upcharge from them. It's a huge amount of stuff, including MMTs this year, which is insane. And Mizuno has a pretty good grip selection that they don't charge for. So a sneaky good value on what is actually quite an aspirational iron. So that would be another one. What is the best model from them? I would say, overall JPX Forged and 245 would be the ones that I find go out the door most often from them. But I would also say I really like the Hot Metal HL model for the type of person that needs HL. If you need HL, it's a good model. And then you probably don't need to hear me say this, but obviously a Srixon iron for people that aren't into this kind of stuff might get overlooked at times, but they're obviously very good. And I'm forgetting others, but whatever. What are my thoughts on SST Pure shaft analysis? There's probably better ways to spend your money. if I'm being totally honest. My audio's cutting out. Great. Hello. Okay. Hopefully that stops happening. All right. Apologies if I've been on, off, and on again. Let me know if you can hear me okay now. I guess it cut out once or twice. Yes, BK, relax, bud. There's a lot of questions here, pal. Thank you, but take it easy. Graphite shafts similar to Project X and C-taper, super stiff, I guess, is basically what you're looking for. LA Golf L Series, I guess an Axiom 125X or an MMT 125 in the appropriate flex for you. But basically what you're asking is what's kind of the stiffest, most stable graphite options for irons out there. Those are probably, from what I've tested, those would be the ones that are up there. And again, if you send a super chat, I will get to it, so don't worry. How are we doing here? How are we doing? All right, a little bit of a speed round here. I feel like I'm a mile behind, clearly. My simulator studio over there was somewhat designed by me in terms of like the layout and the camera setups and stuff, but the actual enclosure, the turf and all that stuff, Foresight Sports Canada, they did an extremely good job. They came and built that whole enclosure. So I'm assuming that's mostly what you mean, the side panels and stuff. So give those guys a call. I'm hoping you're in Canada because that's who did mine. PXG Black Ops driver or the Triple Diamond AI Smoke, both are good. Both are good. Two extremely low spin heads. That's a good question. If I had to give up all my training aids and only get to keep 3. No, I don't have as many. Well, that's not true. I do. I've collected quite a few over the years. Watson hanger, I would definitely have to be on my list. I'm not going to get into like the sensors. I'm not going to call those training aids. I'm going to talk about stuff that's just an item that's under $200. So Watson hanger for sure. I'll loop the George Gankus stuff into one because I think their little wrist snappy and the flappy slot thing are also quite good. I would like to hang on to that. I don't want to give that away just yet. And there's a third training aid, which has actually been developed at this very facility, which may or may not be for sale at some point soon. If you've been here, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And if you haven't, then you'll probably find out pretty soon. If you're looking to come to the shop in June, yes, there'll be more dates opened up soon. Honestly, if you're coming from out of town or something, or you really need to book far in advance, just send me an email. I'll find something for you. The schedule online booking works on a 31-day advance booking schedule just so I can manage my time easier. But as I said, if you need to book further in advance for whatever reason, just send me an email and we'll make it happen. Shafts similar to a Ventus Black that don't cost a fortune. Hazardous Gen 4 Black is very stiff for what it costs, I would say. You can get it from a lot of companies stock with a driver. The 10C Series AV White that comes from Titleist, again, if you're getting a Titleist driver, it doesn't cost anything. Very good shaft, very stiff. You know, are they the same build quality and content as a Ventus? Obviously not, but they're very good for what they cost, which in some cases is $0 if you're buying a new driver. What else? Kylie White comes in a lot of clubs, so like a 60X. Is it as stiff as a Ventus Black? No, but again, we're in the same neighborhood. I will also say that like a lot of people shouldn't be playing a Ventus Black. I'm just going to throw that out there. I see people coming in here with Ventus Black and TR Black, and I watch them hit. And it's not. I'm not knocking them. They were obviously fit for it. And the thought why comes to my mind usually. It's like, why? Why are you playing that shaft? Don't let someone fit you into a Ventus Black, and I'm not picking on Fuji, just because you spin the ball a lot or hit the ball high. That is not going to solve your problem. Pretty much guaranteed. Okay. Any advice for somebody? Yes, Matthew. Thank you. Enjoy yourself. That's my advice. And thank you for your ongoing support. You have improved, dude, you've improved a lot. I'm glad to hear it's going well. Minwoo Lee still uses a bladed 3-iron. Yep. I mean, again, he's a guy who absolutely destroys the ball. And maybe he controls his flight better with it because he has so much speed. Entirely possible. But they are effectively dead, as we talked about. I had this question before. It's a good question. For, let's just say, any given player trying to find the right ball, how many rounds did you play with the ball before you have an idea of whether it's good for you or not? I wouldn't play 1,000,000 rounds with it. I would go to an indoor simulator place that uses foresight, ideally. The only reason I don't say TrackMan indoors is because you do need to use an RCT ball. RCT balls are only available from one company and 2 models, so that doesn't really work for a ball fitting when you're trying to try different stuff. So try to find yourself an indoor facility with a foresight technology installation, try a bunch of different balls to narrow it down, get some concrete numbers, and then have your final confirmation outside. So in that case, 1 or 2 indoor sessions with someone that knows what they're doing and a round or 2 on the golf course, you should be good to go. A round with Tiger at my home course or a round at Augusta with 3 randoms? That's a good question. If it was a round at Augusta with 3 people of my choice, I might go that direction. But yeah, I think it would probably, out of your 2 choices, be cooler to play around with Tiger. People can say what they want about him, but that is still someone that myself and a lot of people grew up as their golfing hero. And I think Tiger in his older age, to be honest with you, would be more fun to spend time with. He'd probably agree with that as well. I think he's gotten a little bit more, I don't know, just seems like more fun to be around than he used to be. On the golf course. I'm sure off the golf course he was probably always a pretty good time. What are your thoughts on people who come in for a fitting with the intention of using the specs to order online off a manufacturer's website? I mean, ultimately, you come in here, you pay for my time, you can do whatever you want. I usually just, if someone said that to me, I would just say, no problem. If it's like a reason to do with convenience or pricing, I would try to just match it or give them some incentive, I guess, to just buy it here. I mean, my pricing is basically your boilerplate Golf Town, just like your Golf Galaxy pricing. I charge the same as all these places charge for shafts and upcharges, so it's all very standard pricing. So yeah, I would at least ask, like, you know, is there a reason you want to order it elsewhere? If they have a reason, then no problem. No problem. Ultimately, you're coming in to pay for my time. So at this place in particular, you know, this is a place with obviously a slightly higher service rate than the average, which I believe is justified. And then, you know, the business doesn't need to sell every single person a set of clubs to survive. So I don't generally feel the need to push it on someone. But you know, obviously, if the fit went well and the person's happy, the conversation about ordering clubs comes up. If the person said, no, I'm ordering from this website because I have a coupon code, or I have a gift card, or my friend works there, or who cares, then yeah, so be it. What can you do? But if you're ordering off a manufacturer's website, paying boilerplate, that's literally the same as buying it through me. There'd be no difference. In fact, I drop ship stuff to people all the time. So it would really just be if you want to support that shop with your purchase, as long as the pricing and logistics were exactly the same. All right, from the Quest for Peace, mid-handicapper looking to lower my handicap. Very good. How long should you play? Oh, sorry. I did answer your question already for free, but thank you for the super chat. Always appreciate it. I think I just answered this on Instagram. And if I didn't, and I'm just misremembering, I'll say it again. Do I think it makes a worthwhile difference? Unless your definition of worthwhile is very different than the majority of people's, then I would say no. And I would probably spend my money on something else. Just telling it like it is. Of all the things I would spend an extra 30 or 40 bucks a club on, that's probably one of the lowest possible things on the list. Oh, okay. Yeah, I guess the connection was a little weak at one point, guys. Sorry about that, if it got a little jittery. My apologies. Studio's going great. Thank you for asking. Very busy. Busy to the point where, to be honest, I think people were probably getting a little frustrated trying to get an appointment, which I apologize for. So a little less crazy for the next few weeks. If you're looking for an appointment, you can absolutely get in. If there's a time you're looking for and it's not available, or you want to book further in advance, shoot me an email, shoot me a message. We will get you in. But yeah, everything's good. Everything is good. Technology here is continuing to expand. The options, demo options are continuing to expand. And honestly, when I think about, it's only been about 8 months, but not that I don't think I was doing a good job when I started, but I would say that I personally feel like what I deliver in a session is substantially better all the time. So hopefully, if someone's been on the fence, they'll see enough feedback on the website and on Google reviews and stuff to see that people are having a good time. I think we're doing a good job as far as I'm concerned. Daniel, good question. So, want to go with graphite for some vibration dampening. Cool. I like the Modus 130. What graphite alternative? 130. I mean, in that weight category, your best options would be Axioms, close-ish. I believe there's an Acra. Model name is literally just escaped my mind. Just go to their website. They have something in the 125, 130 range. MMTs. LA shafts, as I mentioned, are really cool. They're definitely really stiff, so that you may not love, but they'd be worth a look as well. High weight category graphite isn't super common, so there's at least 5 or 6 options out there, but you would want to go somewhere to do a little bit of testing. But Modus 130s, it's a bit of a different profile, but just be careful you're not trying to find the exact same thing in graphite. It's not really something you're going to have success with. You might want to just resign yourself to probably going to feel a little bit different, even just from a material standpoint. Hello from Ireland. Hello. Mr. Crowley. Hello from Canada. Are graphite putter shafts the future? I wouldn't be surprised if they were more common. Many people many times have said, the putter heads are so expensive now. The shaft is just a very cheap steel shaft a lot of the time. Wouldn't it make sense to put something a little bit more advanced quality-wise, consistency-wise in there? And I agree. Is it going to change the way you putt? No. Will it give you a different feel? Yes, for sure. And the science behind it makes sense. But it's all, like I always say, it's priorities, right? Is spending an extra $200 on a putter shaft a priority for you? Does it work with the budget for you? Is it something you just like and you want to do because it looks cool? Fine. But it's not going to change your life, that's for sure. But I think it makes sense. I mean, if I buy a $600, $700, $800, $900 putter, which is becoming very common, especially with our Canadian dollar being so crap, then yeah, I don't feel like it would be outrageous to expect to have something kind of sexy when it comes to the actual shaft component of the club. No different than the rest of your clubs, right? Mizuno STZ spins too much, it's lofted down, playing 10C1 at 65X. Are there any shaft options that will kill the spin? No. Well, 400 RPMs, that's not that much. Theoretically, yeah, you could probably find something that would help you strike it a bit higher in the head. I don't know that you're going to find something that changes your dynamic loft that much. It's possible. You'd probably have to go pretty extreme, though. And it'd be worth a shot. Before you give up on the head, you kind of need to go somewhere and have an interchangeable. So if you came here, for example, I would put a Mizuno tip with a universal adapter on it and try some shafts with you, and we'd find out. I would say maybe. I thought you were going to say more than 400 RPMs is not that much. I thought you were going to say like 1,000 or something. That's definitely possible. A little strike point movement, maybe a little bit of dynamic loft. It's possible. Yeah, don't give up on it quite yet. Okay. Instagram, I apologize. I have, Wilson irons. Yeah, Wilson irons are underrated. Sure, agreed. Sorry, Instagram, I've neglected you. 44-degree pitching wedge, which is becoming very common in sets. What wedges would you pair? Depends on what you carry in the higher part of the bag. So if you have, what a lot of people have is really just one hybrid and one fairway wood between the long iron and the driver. You have room to have 48, 52, 56, and 60, so more wedges. Honestly, if you're playing a set with a 44-degree pitching wedge, I think you should get the 48-degree gap wedge from that iron set more often than not. Probably 9 out of 10 times, that's what I would recommend for someone. Even at high, I might play that in my next set, to be honest with you, if I go with a bit lower lofted configuration. So yeah, if you're playing 44 pitching wedge and somehow you only have room for 3 wedges, you'd have to get a little more creative. You might have to do like, 44, 49, 54, 59, something like that. It depends. Many variables. But generally speaking, you're going to hit a hell of a lot more shots from, let's say 140, 130 downwards with those wedges than you will ever hit from 220 yards plus. So most people don't have much use for another wood or hybrid where they would actually use another wedge quite a bit. I'm kind of caught up. All right, I'll slow down a little bit. I got another 15 minutes, then I got to get ready for some evening sessions. That's a good question, Will. What kind of swing speeds do you think moving from stiff to X comes to driving irons? Is there any issue? Stiff. Okay, so playing stiff with 105 mile an hour club head speed on a 2 iron. You wouldn't want to play, a stiff in like a shaft that is very stiff to begin with in terms of profile. There's flex and profile are very different things. So like a Ventus red in, 6S is very different than a Ventus black in 6S. We're probably stating the obvious for some of you, but that is first thing to think about. So at your club head speed, could you get away with stiff in certain profiles? Maybe, but in a lot of profiles, probably not the best idea. What exactly that would do for you, it depends a lot on your swing. So, 105 miles an hour with a 2 iron, you'll probably get your 3 wood to 110. You probably get your driver to 115. I'm just throwing that out there, something around there. You're not like, hey, this guy must have X or he'll play the worst golf of his life. I would just err on the side, if you're going to go with stiff, err on the side of things that are pretty stable profiles in the stiff. And if you want to dabble in X, don't go with the craziest X in the world. Like if I can just think of a driving iron shaft that's nice, obviously like a Graphite Design DI, so the orange, the legendary orange shaft, not the craziest stiff profile in the world. That in an X is something that at your speed might actually work quite well. So hopefully that makes sense. There's just a lot of variables, obviously. All right. Who makes the quarter zip I'm wearing right now? This is a G4 sweater. G4. This is ironically the sweater that I wore when I was making fun of the appearance of the new Callaway driver. Somebody pointed out that me critiquing the look of their kind of like light gray forged carbon, and I didn't say it looked bad, I just said maybe it wasn't my favorite. The irony of me doing that while wearing this sweater was initially lost on me, but I did later agree. Am I going to do a video with Mitchell Hooper? To be honest with you, I don't know who that is. And if I'm saying that and someone's going, how can you not know who that is? I might just be having one of those moments. Yeah, I have some experience with direct-to-consumer brands. Yeah, there'll be some videos. So we carry Haywood in the shop, so a lot of you would be familiar with that. Done a video on the driver already. Have the irons and the wood and the hybrid as well. Probably do a little video on that soon as well. So yeah, I have some experience. Tried some. A lot of it doesn't come in left-handed though, to be honest. So I wouldn't say I've hit personally a ton of it. But there's a lot of good stuff out there. A lot of good stuff. Not commonly something you can test in a fitting situation, but price-wise, there's definitely some good options out there. Okay, 1 second. That's an interesting question. So, yeah, at what point do your wrists hinge and how do they hinge? So you will probably hear a lot of different opinions on this, and you can't just take one piece of advice because it depends on the person. What more hinge or less hinge means to one person is going to vary. I would say it's pretty rare that I see someone not hinge the club enough, so I'll say that. You do see the occasional person who, if they set the club a little sooner, they would sequence their backswing better, let's just say that. But more often than not, people have excess hinge, which causes them a lot of phase control issues. So, to waist high, I would say you don't need a whole lot to have happened there. If you could get it roughly near 90 degrees-ish by arm parallel in the backswing, decent checkpoint. A little less, not going to kill you. And then try not to increase it drastically from there. Just try not to get, well inside. I see people with they're down at 60 or 55 degrees. It's not that you can't play well from there. It's just a little more passive with the wrist hinge. Is generally better, I think, for phase control. People have a lot easier time chipping as well. A lot of people are just hinging the crap out of it and just having a hard time striking the ball, controlling their low point, having a very V-shaped low point down by the ball, if that makes sense. So, and how do they hinge? I think people need to be very careful. Most people, when they are hinging, I'll use my left wrist here, are applying extension of the wrist at the same time, which is kind of what your wrist wants to do. So you have to keep that in mind. So we want to have some set to the wrist for sure, but you want to try to do it a little bit more with a flat wrist, if you can. That would make a lot better structure at the top of the swing. So a lot of excess hinge usually comes with a lot of that extension, which opens the face, deepens the shaft pitch on the way down, and causes all kinds of nightmarish issues. Okay, a couple more. Dave. You might, Dave. You might. Keep at it. Do I teach absolute beginners in groups and pairs? So I've definitely taught some beginners in the shop. I would say you're probably best to just come in for your own dedicated hour. I wouldn't say this is really the best environment for a group hitting balls because it's a single hitting bay. People come together and kind of take turns, and fittings are good that way because you can kind of take a break for half an hour. When it comes to a lesson though, I generally would say no. Doesn't really make sense for a lesson, just the way I try to structure it. It just gets a bit challenging to go back and forth. And often people end up hitting balls too long and more or less, if you're coming for a lesson, generally speaking, try to just come for your own hour. So no, you don't have to have a certain skill level to come here. Obviously what we do here is probably more on the advanced side in terms of the technology, but that doesn't mean you can't come in here. I try to pride myself on adapting well to who's there, whether they're a scratch player or better, or someone who's a little bit more junior to the game. Bradley, which do I find more fun, a fitting or a lesson? I wouldn't say that the format is the deciding factor necessarily. I like the variety of it. I would say I like that part of my day is spent doing one, part of my day is spent doing the other, depending on the person. Part of individual sessions can have components of both. So I think on my end, I think it just gives me a little bit more variety. It also, to me, gives me a more realistic look at what someone could actually be doing to improve. I think if you're only on one side or the other, it is a bit of a limited field of view. I mean, if someone's just coaching without really an eye on what's going on with the person's equipment, you might be missing some stuff, and obviously vice versa. If we're just fitting, the person's swing, to be fair, has a lot more to do with it than the equipment. So yeah, I enjoy both. It just depends. Depends on the situation, obviously, more so than what it is. And then yeah, I like having a little bit of both going on throughout the day. Obviously, if you teach all day versus teaching part of the day and having some fits and then maybe finishing, I think just that style of day is probably what I would enjoy most when I have a little bit of both to do. Drew did say this. Yep, he was mentioning if you carry your driver over 300 yards that a 3-wood isn't necessarily the most useful. Yeah, it's probably not the first time I've heard something like that, but I would consider that to be worth considering. Yeah, basically, I mean, I hit a 3-wood on my course 2 times, but it's 2 holes that have a forced layup, or you can hit it, no further than, let's say, 285 or 290, so it doesn't make sense to hit driver. but I don't want to lay way back with like a hybrid or something. So, yeah, I guess it just depends. Like I have a spot in the bag for that club. I will hit it at my course a couple times. Other courses I'll probably hit it about the same or a little bit more. So I think it just depends. I mean, certainly at Drew's speed, I think he probably, well, he's done it. He's carrying 2 drivers instead and then like a utility iron. So I think it just depends. I think you just have to assess it for yourself. Do you use a 3-wood on the golf course? If it collects dust, then yeah, you might want to do something else with that spot in the bag. Okay, a couple more, 2 more. John, good question. If I learn something in a lesson, groove it on the range, and then forget how to do it on the course, any tips for getting the lesson to the course? Time, repetition. You got to not have the expectation that you can take something to the course all that quickly, to be perfectly honest. Performance on the golf course is a very different animal than on the range. And then even by yourself on the range is a different animal than in your lesson. So you will just want to make sure you're getting the absolute most of your practice, the highest quality of practice, not hitting a million balls, hitting very good reps, monitoring what you're doing with a lot of feedback, whether that's launch monitor and some camera from your phone, just to make sure you're not wasting your time. But yeah, to be honest with you, it's time. You can't expect yourself to change a movement pattern that quickly, because when you're on the golf course, what you do without thought is what's going to happen. Put yourself under a little bit of pressure. Yes, you'll have some swings in the course where you can produce your lesson, let's call it, but you're not just going to do it mindlessly, you know what I mean? And then you have pressure on top of that. You have environmental conditions that weren't there in your lesson or on the range, and that's the type of thing that just makes it take longer. So it's not that you're not capable of it, but yeah, you really have to stick with it, and you really have to put in the time and the effort. Dave, am I still doing online lessons for $75? I am absolutely not. Nope. So rates are changed, obviously. Online lessons, I am doing here and there if someone asks. Officially, no. I've done them when the schedule is allowing of it. And if people email me, I'll just see if it makes sense in that case, depending on what they're looking for. So if you are listening to this and you think you might want to do that, just send me an email, and I will let you know if it's possible. I have Haywood in our matrix right now. Will I have other ones? I wouldn't say I have any immediate plans. I'm not against it in the future. We'll see. I have a lot of stuff in here as it is, obviously. So I'll say this, not that many people are going to come here and book an appointment to get fit for a direct-to-consumer brand. And it's not me knocking those companies, but it's just not going to happen. I don't see it happening on a large scale. So I will have a selection because I think it's worth doing, but to carry 3-4 different direct-to-consumer brands in a shop, you're not likely to sell enough to justify what it costs to set that up, and just generally the logistics in the space there. Those companies are, to be fair, mostly set up to sell direct to the consumer. But yeah, I want to have a little bit in here because I think it's nice to have different price points available for people that want a custom set, but budget-wise, just need to keep it a little bit more reasonable, which is totally fine. But multiple brands, we'll see. I would say not super likely. I would probably be adding more major brands before I added another direct-to-consumer brand. So, like for example, as I said, Mira is going to be in here at some point soon. A more permanent presence from PXG will be coming at some point. So, and I think if I were to add another one, Tacoma would probably be on the list, if for whatever that's worth. I know a lot of people do like it, so that would probably be on the list of ones that I would look at. Can the face of a T150 crack like a hollow-headed iron T200? I don't think it would be under any sort of normal circumstance. I don't think. No, it's not like a thin face like a T200 would be. It's obviously, is it a single forged piece of blade like an iron, traditional blade iron? Not exactly, but I would be very shocked if that cracked. Very, very shocked. Okay, one more Instagram question, and then I'm going to go because I have some sessions about to start. And I need to put a couple emails in. Haven't tried the Wilson CB forged. Apologies, I did try the Dynapower forged. Haven't tried the CB. Have not. Odyssey, someone's asked this earlier. Odyssey AI 1.9 putter coming to retail. I'm not sure, but sorry about that. There are other stuff in here, but I haven't heard much about that. Do I think the TSR1 would be a good junior golfer driver with the correct shaft? It would be one that would definitely be worth testing. Yep, absolutely. Really good driver. Good lighter weight driver. Not extreme lightweight like a Zexio or something, but if you're looking at that type of thing, yes, it would be the type of thing that a good junior player might get some good results from. All right, I should probably go. I will take this last one though. How has Golf Liberty grown relative to your expectation? I'll start with that. I would say for the most part, it has grown faster than I expected, which is good. Busier than I expected. Difficulty that I didn't expect as much. I would say probably just like, and anyone who started a business would tell you this, probably like finances are just the most stressful thing always, and having the trust that things you've invested in, and you're paying off these things sometimes, whether it's with like long-term loans or whatever it is, trusting that that's going to eventually translate to sales and business. It's tough to kind of dig that hole financially and then just kind of have to wait and trust that it's going to work out. So I mean, I'm starting to get more comfortable with it because there's been times where the schedule was really quiet early on and I kind of went like, oh shit. Was this just a terrible mistake kind of thing? And then it ended up just being like a seasonal thing, and it picked up and things were good. I would say as long as the feedback I get from people is very strong and I know that they've gotten good value out of coming here and they're happy with their experience, I'm not going to stress about the business as much as I used to. I'll say that. So obviously I'm fortunate people have been nice to write nice reviews for us and stuff. So I think we've built a good foundation of trust with, not a ton of people, but I've seen probably 500-600 people in here so far, which is cool. So yeah, I would say probably anyone that started a business has some unrealistic expectations at first. I definitely would have been guilty of that. I think probably just on like the overall financial side, just like you don't really realize how tight you have to run stuff. Margins are never quite what you expect. Expenses pop up that you kind of tried to account for, but there's always more. So stuff like that, which is not exactly groundbreaking, was a bit of a surprise. But you get used to it. But I've probably been pleasantly surprised with people's feedback so far. I think I've gotten a lot of messages and reviews that I was just happy to read. Just happy to read. I mean, you're always going to worry that are you doing a good enough job? Are you creating the type of experience that you kind of set out to? I mean, everyone has good days and bad, but trying your best. Is it what people are looking for? It does seem like this place is something that people have been looking for from a experience standpoint, and hopefully offering something unique enough that makes people want to seek it out. So far so good, I would say. I have a number of things that we've run into that are a pain in the ass, obviously, but that is the nature of running a business. Okay. Okay, I'm going to take one. I'm going to take one more. I'm going to take one more because I just had this conversation with someone yesterday. The whole thing about using blades because it will make you a better golfer. So I've heard that, and people have been given that advice. Use blades because you'll know where you hit the face. It'll make you a better ball striker. I hear that a lot. So Christian, you're not exactly saying that, but it's just jogged my memory. Obviously, you learned to play golf and you've gotten used to them. So here's like the brass tacks. The reality of the situation is there really is no performance benefit to a blade for pretty much anyone on earth. It's not no one, but it's pretty much no one. Can the consistency of distance control and trajectory control be achieved with a club that's a bit more forgiving than a blade? I'm pretty sure the answer is definitively yes. Is a little bit of perimeter weighting stopping, Scotty Scheffler from hitting the exact shots he wants to? I just don't see how that's possible. Personal preference is very strong, and people will be convinced that certain things can't happen unless they have a certain type of club. The science behind it, I just don't think is necessarily in keeping with that. So you're seeing a ton of tour players playing, a Titleist staff will give you an indication. Most of them are playing a T100. That's definitely not a blade. You're seeing a couple of them sneak into a T150, which is kind of interesting. So the short answer to what you've asked there, Christian, is yes, 100%. If you have gotten used to and have a good ball flight with that type of loft profile, traditional loft profile, certainly don't discourage you from looking at keeping that if it's kind of something you find to be suitable for you. But there's nothing wrong with playing something that when you strike it 7 millimeters in the toe, doesn't literally go, 10 yards short. And I literally watch a million balls a day, and I look at the strike point within the millimeter and all different kinds of irons, and I can tell you that if you're playing a blade or a very small cavity back, even a T100 with mine, if you're mishitting that thing by more than 7 or 8 millimeters, you are really going to know. You're going to get a very severe difference in the carry. So that is something to consider. Do you really want to be held to a 4 millimeter circle in the middle of the face for some perceived advantage that, unless you're in the top, 99.9th percentile of ball strikers in the world, that even then you may have a hard time actually justifying it when you kind of get into the science of it? I would say no. And the idea that someone learning to play golf would develop better habits and play better golf with a bladed iron, I think is mostly nonsense, because if you go get coaching from someone that teaches you how to swing the club well and tells you where you struck the ball with some feedback from a launch monitor and tells you if you are delivering good shaft lean or good face angle or if you're flipping at it, I understand what people are saying about like a big club masking a mishit or a bad technique. Of course it does that. But that's if you have no idea what's going on through impact. If you have absolutely no idea what's happening, then maybe. But I don't see that making someone better at golf, personally. So, and I had this conversation with someone the other day that had kind of received similar advice. And listen, I hear you, but I just don't think it's actually going to do you any good. And you're making your life so much more difficult by trying to stick with that concept. So definitely would encourage anyone playing in general. If you're playing a very unforgiving iron, you don't have to play a super strong lofted club and change your ball flight entirely. You can play something that has similar loft with more forgiveness. A Ping I 230, an Apex Pro from Callaway, a T100 is a little bit more forgiving for sure from Titleist, or a T150, a 243 from Mizuno, a P770 from TaylorMade. These are clubs that aren't crazy strong loft at all, really. But they have a little bit of technology in there to make your life a little bit easier. But the mishit thing in millimeters is interesting. If you need to get that experience somewhere to really get your brain to understand it. Because even for me, I know what happens for me on my irons, 10 millimeters in the toe or the heel. And I can feel that for sure, and I can feel it off the face. So you just have to be basically willing to consider, you have to be willing to trade that off on the golf course. Like, is it okay that if you towed it, a certain amount, that you would miss a green or you would come up short or not get a forced carry or something? Because it's not the same as hitting balls in the simulator, right? Not the same as hitting balls in the simulator. Dave's ordering T400. It's good advice. Yep. Cancel those blades. Yep. Ask them if they're coming out with T500s. Pre-order those instead. I didn't mean to pick on you, Christian. Just triggered in my brain some questions I've had in the past. But yeah, if you learn, you got hand-me-downs there, got you into the game, that's great. But treat yourself to something that is a little bit easier to hit. It's not going to make you a worse golfer, that's for sure. That is for sure. Okay, I should probably go. Do a little bit of work before I get started on my evening stuff. What can I tell you that I haven't already said before I leave? July 11th, I would love if some of you would want to come play in my charity event. It's at my home club, which is just down the road from the shop. On my Instagram or preserve.foundation website, you can just go have a look. See the details. Prize list is getting pretty cool. Drew Cooper's coming. Seems like I'll be able to twist Big Al's arm to come as well. It should be sweet. So if you are available, please consider coming. If you are just wanting to play by yourself, for sure we can pair you up. If you want to come with a group, great. You definitely don't have to bring a foursome by any means. So, and if you have any questions, feel free to shoot me a message. Okay, officially last one. How often do I adjust iron length in a fitting? Is it more or less common than people think? I actually think that it is happening too often in fittings from what I see. I'm seeing people coming in here constantly, either with clubs that have been pretty oddly adjusted for length for that person, or they've been given that recommendation. I think people would be surprised how often standard length would make a lot more sense. And people are getting way too bogged down by being told that they really need 1/4 inch under, that you really need 1/4 inch over, or guys that are 6'2", which is tall, but like they're coming in here with 1.25 inches, 1.5 inches over. Oh, I really need 1.5 inches over. It's like, you probably don't. So I often kind of mess with people, to be honest, and they'll tell me something like that, and I'll be like, oh, okay, and then I'll start putting stuff together. They'll be hitting it for 10, 15 minutes, different options. You know, we find something that that works really well, and this happens all the time. They'll kind of look at me and like, oh, okay, this is feeling really good. Like, these are 1 inch over, right? I'm like, nope, those are 1/2 inch over or whatever. So err on the less extreme side with length. I think it is way overdone. Just as a general blanket statement in the fitting world, I think length is just like, fitters need to chill a bit with iron length specifically. I would prefer seeing people mess around with hybrid and fairway wood length and driver length. Not crazy amounts, but you know, hybrids and fairway woods, a lot of people do well with slightly shorter there. Drivers, a lot of people do well at 45.25 inches instead of 45.75, which is becoming standard now. So yeah, I would just be skeptical. I've had someone come in here who was, I'm looking up at because he's taller than me. He had 1/4 inch under irons, just for literally no reason that I can think of. So just be careful. I don't think people are maliciously doing it in fits. I just think that sometimes fitters are trying to, you know, give people custom specs, and I don't know. Are they just afraid of writing standard length in the recommendation? I don't know. I don't know. But length is not going to change what people think it's going to change all that often. People ask me like, oh, I'm hitting on the toe, should I play a longer club? I'm hitting on the heel, should I play a shorter club? Somebody can hit it on the heel standing 5 feet away with the shortest club you've ever seen, you know, just based on their swing. So something to keep in mind. That was a good question, and I don't mind taking it. All right, I think I got everyone's super chat. God help me if I didn't. And I will probably do this again in less than the 4-month gap that I just had. So look out for those. I will do some more of these Instagram lives in the meantime because they are easy and they take 2 seconds. And I can do them from wherever, including my house. But thanks for tuning in, and I will see you next time I do this.